Hi, I'm Daniel Gickelhorn, and I am from the Azure networking team. Today, we're going to talk about a blueprint for securing your web applications and content delivery strategy. In particular, we're going to focus on how do you move your applications from the cloud, from your cloud hosting to the edge and continue your existing security posture while you do that. How do you improve performance through that migration, and how do you better improve your services at the edge? So today, traffic to Azure, traffic to the cloud is at a tipping point. More applications are moving to the cloud. There are more SaaS applications and other applications that require multi-tenancy and high performance needs. There are more modern internet applications that are transforming as they move to the cloud. These applications need more high-speed connectivity solutions for how do you maintain that performance and security as you expand your application outward. In particular, the modern applications that are coming to the cloud are seeing a new set of challenges. A combination of bots and other things abusing services, attacks, and more of these applications are moving to content delivery networks and other solutions to move their content out to the edge and distribute that content in a way that helps them better absorb attacks and better deal with the impact of being internet-centric. The move to this new security model requires a foundational change. In particular, you need to think about how do you embrace services like Zero Trust. How do you think about cloud native services that connect easily with the rest of your application? How do you think about how do you deliver continuously that application in a way that's secure and maintainable and reduces your overall costs? And how do you move those applications to the edge to reduce the overall latency to your applications and scale out? How do you deliver that application to your end users? In particular, there are four areas that you need to think about when it comes to scalable security for internet web applications. The first is protecting applications from common attacks. These are like cross-site scripting or other places where a common malicious actor may attack your application with limited access to the application and it may exploit any flaws within your application. You need to restrict access to resources in your application and make sure only trusted users can access that application and the contents that are expected. You need to control and govern the inbound traffic flows and make sure that you understand what are the expectations around traffic and volumes coming into your application and what behaviors you're expecting your users to take. And finally is combining those three into a global perimeter policy that allows you to scale your application out and maintain that security perimeter at the edge, not just at the data center. So in Azure today, we provide a series of products that allow you to do just this, to expand your application from the data center all the way to the edge and secure it along that entire journey. The first is Azure Front Door, which is a secure application delivery platform that allows you to accelerate dynamic applications like those that have a login page or change for every user. Azure CDN that allows you to cache content at the edge or scale out, let's say, file delivery or OTT video or live video out at the edge. An application gateway, which is an application delivery control that allows you to really customize how your application behaves in each region in the data center. Attached to those applications are three products that help you improve your overall security posture. The first is Web Application Firewall, which allows you to configure web or HTTP rules and policies to be able to secure your application from known and unknown attack vectors. Azure DDoS protection, which allows you to protect your application at a low level from high volume attacks and unexpected traffic flows. And Azure Firewall, which allows you to do inbound and outbound security within the region to be able to secure your application's inbound layer 3, 4, or TCP layer traffic, as well as outbound HTTP layer access to, say, protecting your application from reaching unknown sources and exfiltrating data. We provide these services from the edge on our CDN platform all the way to the data center and allow you to attach and combine these products with each of these security services. If you look at this in a different way, You can think of us going from the edge all the way down to the data center and providing protection at each layer in between. Starting with how you build your application from logically segmented subnets, service endpoints to restrict access to PaaS resources, and controlling your routing behavior policies at each of your regional deployments. And then scaling that up with global distribution, improving latency by moving your application delivery to the edge, absorbing your attacks in multi-tenant infrastructure like with CDN or AFD, you being ready to take unexpected traffic by building solutions that allow you to scale to that fluctuation in traffic and be able to load balance across your individual regional deployments. And then being able to quickly update that policy globally so that when a new attack comes that you can react to it effectively. This distribution between regional deployments and global deployments basically takes you from your small number of sites seeing lots of traffic to a global infrastructure that's seeing small amounts of traffic at many sites, deployed at the edge there to absorb that traffic and process it where it comes into the network. Putting that all together, all of these solutions combine with your hub and spoke or your other architectural models in Azure across PaaS and IaaS to provide you a end-to-end solution for how do you ingest, egress content from your end users into the network, how do you secure it as it's passing through each of those perimeters from the edge all the way down to your application, and how do you along the way improve the reliability and security of that traffic as it's flowing through your architecture. So next I'm going to talk about how do you extend that application security from your data center to the edge. How do you actually do it? How do you actually combine these applications? So this starts with our CDN platform. Azure Front Door and Azure CDN are our edge services that live at the edge of our network. They're deployed to global points of presence across the globe that allow you to perform routing and security tasks at the edge as close to your end users as possible to improve the scale of your application, to improve the latency of your application, and to process those attacks or any kind of malicious traffic to your application there as close as possible and distributed across the globe. We provide this as a easy to deploy service, and you can route traffic either to backends within Azure or backends on premises wherever your application is living today. And it is a useful tool for you not just to build as part of your application, but to actually help you migrate your application between on-premises and cloud and vice versa. We provide a series of capabilities in the platform that allow you to implement core load balancing so that even if you are under attack, you can keep your service up, a custom routing policy with rules so that you can actually customize the behavior of Front Door and CDN to your application, and then secure that application at the edge using a set of our Microsoft-defined WAF or Web Application Firewall policies, as well as defining your own policies of how do you want to control access to your service. We also provide insight into bots through Microsoft Threat Intelligence so that you can actually understand what bad bots are Microsoft seeing on the internet and block them proactively. In addition to those security services, we provide a platform that allows you to centralize your metrics, get a single pane of glass out on all your traffic coming into your application at the edge globally, be able to centralize your metrics and logging for traffic coming into your application. It integrates with the same services you're using for the rest of Azure into Event Hub or Log Analytics. And if you're using some SIEM integration with Azure Sentinel or another service, it'll integrate there too. And because it's part of Azure, it provides you that best practice DevOps integration with Azure and its whole ecosystem, including services like App Service, Storage, App Gateway, and other services. So today, we're going to go through a couple of the steps that are required to really move your application security perimeter to the edge. First, how do you choose the application delivery architecture that you're going to use? Because applications are complex, and then not all solutions fit all needs. We're going to talk about How do you migrate the security object and settings that you have to a global policy from a regional policy and maintain your security posture? And then finally, we're going to talk about how do you tie in to a central logging system and metric feeds to your application. So first, how do you choose an application delivery architecture? So here in Azure, we provide a collection of tools, of services that allow you to basically distribute your application both hierarchically from the region to the edge or horizontally at each of those layers. We recommend that if you're using a web application, that you use one of our web application services, that is Azure CDN, Azure Front Door, and App Gateway. Each of these services combine or independently provide a solution to common cloud problems. If you're delivering static websites, files, or videos, Azure CDN is there to be able to provide that edge, high-speed caching that is needed to deliver that content performantly. Or Azure Front Door is a platform that also sits at the edge, but delivers your dynamic applications like those with a login page or customized to an individual user that can't be cached to the edge while still improving performance. Application Gateway, as I mentioned before, is a regional service that allows you to route traffic to your individual or within your individual regions to your microservices or your containers, and combined with either Front Door or CDN provides an end-to-end secure solution all the way from the end user using SSL to the edge, load balance to each region, and then within each region, load balance with App Gateway to the individual applications themselves. And finally, once you've selected your routing product, either Azure CDN, Front Door, App Gateway, you can attach your security product to that solution. Either if you are using inbound HTTP or HTTPS traffic, you can attach Azure Application Firewall to any of those three platforms today that allow you to inline secure your content coming through. And then for traffic that is going outbound from your application, we recommend you put Azure Firewall in place so that you can control that outbound traffic as well as inbound to your application. So next, we're going to talk about how do you migrate your security objects and settings from a regional policy to a global policy. First, you want to think about how do you protect your application from common attacks. If you're using a virtualized network appliance or something like that today that allows you to secure your content, as you move that workload to the edge, you need to think about how do you carry forward the standard sort of practices about how do you deliver secure services at the edge. There are four items here. First is you need to think about how are you handling common DDoS attacks. These are volumetric attacks or attacks that are focused on invalid traffic. This would be like a DNS amplification attack or something like that. You need to have infrastructure that can absorb that. You need to think about how are you setting up SSL, how are you migrating domains, and continuing to use SSL all the way from your end user to your application backend so that everything's encrypted at each stage of that request journey. Using common tools like OWASP Top 10 will help you pick up standards for securing your application quickly and easily, and ensuring that you are not open to any common baseline attacks. And finally is securing your origin, especially as if you're moving to a service like Azure CDN or Azure Front Door. Securing your origin is really important because they are multi-tenant services, and so anybody using that platform can access anything behind it if you're only setting up an IP ACL. We provide a header for token validation as well as another design pattern that uses the host header to validate today, and I recommend that you take a look at that. Second, how do you restrict access to resources? So make a big deal here at Microsoft about forcing all traffic to SSL, or ensuring that you're only using SSL and that your users aren't using some protocol that allows a bump on the wire or something between the end user and you to look at that traffic. In particular, for privacy standards, this is really important today, is to make sure that you create a redirect in your CDN or front door profile to force only using SSL, or basically to redirect the user to use SSL. Second is to block bad bots as they come through. So as I mentioned before, we provide a list of known bad IP addresses or known bad bots that you can block offhand and create exceptions to if you find exceptions. But that will immediately protect you against any known malicious entities on the internet that we have seen continuously impacting users. And finally is to think about, how do you migrate allow and block lists? As you move to the edge, those allow and block lists won't necessarily be as effective on your regional application as they will be on the edge, since it'll help you scale your application out by blocking traffic at the edge. And so you need to think about, how do you migrate your NSGs or whatever tool you're using to move those allow and block lists out to the edge. You may want to think about not just using IP addresses, but also using device signatures or something like that to be able to help you govern how your content is being accessed from internet clients, and evolve that strategy over time. So third, you need to think about, how do you control and govern inbound traffic flows? You need to be ready for an attack and ready to be able to handle the business continuity challenges that come with operating internet-facing services. That may be a series of different tools, including implementing services like rate limiting to ensure that there's fair access by each end user or each client or each IP address to your service. Setting up load balancing so that you can ensure that if you are under attack, that you can effectively be ready for bursts and ready to react to traffic coming into your service. And then making sure that you really check your application end to end on how you're logging content, how are you tracking, say, client IPs, all the way from your deployment at front door or CDN, all the way down to your individual application, that you can see if you are being attacked, where is that traffic coming from? We do recommend integrating with something like a SIEM system, because it will help you identify outliers, especially outlier IPs or anything that are attacking you directly, through rules and other logic that you can build within those systems. So, and finally, creating a global perimeter policy will help you really rationalize the logic that you're building, the experience that you're building with your individual applications, and expand that not just to each individual application, but expand that across your entire organization. We recommend developing a rule library, because you can share a WAF profile across multiple front doors or multiple CDNs or multiple app gateways. You can really make those rules portable, or you can apply a single policy to everything so that everybody within your organization is compliant to the state of the art in terms of your security posture. You can apply that across domains, so you don't have to think about WAF as just a purely domain-centric challenge. So even if you have dev and test domains or API access, they all really should be thought of as a single pool of services that need a global perimeter policy. Setting up RBAC so that you can help split your application management from your security team and your product development team, so that if you do have a centralized security team, that they can manage security policy horizontally across all of your applications. And finally, creating playbooks. In particular, there's a great solution in Azure Sentinel to be able to deliver or create playbooks that take automatic action to really notify you on detection, and potentially even add rules or take responsive action to any kind of attack coming in. So finally, we're going to talk about, how do you tie your service into a central logging and metrics feed. So as you're operating a global service, especially if you're migrating from, say, on-prem to cloud or private to internet, Being exposed to the internet comes with a set of dynamic challenges for each application. Those can be things that are just either malicious users, unknown traffic flows. It is a somewhat chaotic environment, but the value of being internet facing, getting the performance and scale outweighs the risk if you know how to manage it right. In particular, top recommendation is to really integrate and start to know your data. Azure Front Door will allow you to stream both your regular access logs like your HTTP request response logs, as well as your WAF logs to the same or different sources within Azure Sentinel and other services in Azure like Log Analytics. It allows you to slice and dice that data so that you really start to understand outliers and start to understand how users are accessing your service, and use that as a virtuous cycle to continue to build your application up and to build your experience in delivering that application. These tools also allow you to integrate front door and CDN access logs to your application access logs so that you can really get an end-to-end view of how services are affecting front door, your application, all the way through to your backends, to your data layer, and understand how your application is behaving in both steady state and potentially under attack. We recommend that as you build your application, you run your application, if you're adding front door CDN, that you run side by side and start to enable your WAF detection rules and monitoring progressively over time. This will help you migrate comfortably across your different applications and be able to monitor if there are any changes in behavior between the WAF you're using today and the WAF at front door and CDN. For most customers, this migration takes around 1 to 4 weeks to be able to trust the new rules deployed to front door CDN at the edge versus what they were running previously in their regional deployment. So putting it all together, couple of takeaways from this session in particular. First is that every web API mobile application should have a WAF in front of it. It is there to help you both implement standards and learn from best practice quickly and to turn that on instantly, as well as be able to really react to evolving threats in your application and have a central global place to deploy those rules and to manage access to your service. Second is that moving those web applications to the edge with Azure and Front Door and CDN improve your overall application performance by bringing your content closer to your users geographically. And we allow you to bring that same WAF and security posture that you have at the data center out to the edge. Continuing your perimeter story out to the edge also allows you to leverage our native multi-tenant infrastructure to absorb attacks. So if traffic is arriving and it's not destined to your host name, then that is something that the platform will absorb instead of you having to absorb it in resources that you provisioned within Azure yourself. Next, connecting global load balancing with the security practice and reactive playbooks allows you to be ready for web scale or reactive attacks. It allows you to think about the problem proactively as a business continuity problem. It allows you to ensure that your security practice is complete and that your perimeter is well defined. And creating reactive playbooks allows you to respond to ongoing risks and threats regularly and ensure that you are building that library of knowledge about how your service is used and what threats you have impacting your specific application service needs. Finally, completing your defense and depth security with Azure DDoS protection, Azure Firewall, and configuring NSGs and ASGs within Azure allow you to build a full end-to-end perimeter security solution, not just inbound, but also outbound, and manage your application from the outside in, from the edge to the region, and from the inside out. Well, thank you for watching this session. We hope that you found it useful. Check out more of our resources on azure.com for Azure Front Door, CDN, Application Firewall, Application Gateway, and we hope to see you in a future video.